Hey everyone, I'm Garrett Weinzerl. I'm here with Dills and Jocelyn from the Angry Chicken, and we're also here with Rachelle and Peter from the Hearthstone team. Peter has never been on the Angry Chicken before, so today's going to be fun. Guys, we're here at BlizzCon 2016, and they've just announced the mean streets of Gadget Zan, and all I want to talk about are tri-class cards. Where did this idea come from, and how difficult was it to implement?
So I'll handle the first half, and I'll let Rachelle take the difficulty to implement. Tri-class cards were really important for the mean streets of Gadget Zan. One of the key things in the set is having the different families feel like a unit. So we have the Grimy Goons, we've got the Jade Lotus, and we have the Cabal as the three factions that are vying for control of the mean streets of Gadget Zan. So the Cabal, for instance, are the mages, the priests, and the warlocks, and we wanted them to feel like a team, like they were working together. So we made cards like Cabal Courier that you can play in any of the three decks, and that discovers a card from any of the three classes. So if you play Cabal Courier as a warlock, you'll always see a priest card, you'll always see a mage card, you'll always see a warlock card, and maybe you can get some healing that you haven't had access to before. And if you're a priest, maybe you'll get Fireball, which you need to finish off your opponent. So that was where the idea comes from, is that we wanted these three classes to feel like a team for this expansion.
And as far as implementation, so as an engineer on the team, when they came up with this idea, I was like, that's great. We don't have any support for that. I mean, every card we've ever made before has been part of one class, right? I mean, or a neutral card, but still, that's still one class in our kind of back-end infrastructure. So that's kind of the best part about working with these guys, is that they come up with these ideas and go, hey, can you do this? And we go, well, I guess. Like, let me go think about that. So it took some time to kind of redo all of that infrastructure stuff that assumed that one card, one class, etc. And then also took some iteration in terms of the collection manager and how we present it to the players. Because, I mean, Hearthstone it's physical. We want it to feel very, very physical when you play. We want you to understand what's going on. So visually speaking, that means we have to clearly communicate, like, this is a tri-class card. It goes into 3 different classes. So what does that mean?
As far as the collection manager is concerned, because we can't actually test it on the floor, it's a brawl. Mm-hmm. Do the tri-class cards, when I'm building my deck, is it in my class page, is it in the neutral page, or is there a third tab up at the top for tri-class cards?
And that is the question that we had to answer. Exactly. So we tried a few different things, and where we landed is that we wanted the cards to feel physical, which means that putting one copy of Kazakus, say, in each of your mage, priest, warlock pages, it didn't feel right, because then what does that mean? Do I have 3 of them? I don't understand. So instead we chose to have them be on the neutral pages, but that banner, that indicative banner that says, this is a potion, this means Cabal, this means this guy goes into all 3 of those classes, will always appear on the card. And then when you're deciding, I'm going to make my priest deck today, as those cards filter down, as they always do, to just your priest and neutral cards, the Kazakus card will remain in the neutral pages, and you'll see that he's available for your priest deck.
So speaking of your kind of factions that you've created, are these class groupings, can you just talk a little bit about how you put the 3 classes together in each of the factions? Because I'm a hunter and I don't feel like a goon, so.
Fix that.
What we really wanted to do was think about what unifies these groups in terms of what they're after. So the goons are into, the bruisers, the big guys that are enforcing law on the street. And they do that with, their presence, with their weaponry, with their sheer force. And so in that world, like, which classes made sense to kind of join that kind of armada? And that easily was answered by hunters and paladins and warriors for us. And that same kind of question was asked for the other groups. So for the Cabal, we were looking at, okay, these people are very interested in magic and power at any price. People that are going to brew potions that are going to just blow your minds and your game boards out of the water. So in that case, it was the cloth casters that made sense for us. And those are, of course, the mages, the priests, and the warlocks. And finally, the Jade Lotus are more of your mystical assassin, in the night, you don't know what's going on with them, and they've got an agenda which they're not ready to reveal just yet. And the other 3 classes, the druids, the shamans, the rogues, made a lot of sense there.
I'm curious about how you guys felt about adding cards like this in terms of, say, counterplay. Because there are cards like Babbling Book, where it's a completely random card, and then the opponent has no idea what it could be. Now when you're expanding that to a card from 3 different classes, was it at all concerning? Like, maybe should we give some information to the person about what card they may have gotten, or was there any talk about that when you were interested? Because it's now suddenly a wide variety of cards that it could be.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So one of the things that's nice about it is that there's some element of bluffing. If your opponent needs a healing card, maybe they play it and they get a healing card, or maybe they get a fireball and they're able to play differently or to push the game in a different direction. So there's some amount of strategy there that's very interesting. Kazakus is a great example of this kind of space where you get to build your own spell, but it's from very specific parameters. So the best players will be able to play around, okay, on turn 4, he made a spell. He hasn't played it yet, so maybe it's a 10-cost spell. What did he think he was going to need? Does he know what the matchup's about? Does he understand what the future potentials are going to be? And players that make the right Kazakus potion are going to have a better chance of winning the game. It's very skill testing. It's very interesting.
So one more quick question just about the whole tri-class idea that came with Gadgetzan. Do you, I know it only, like it hasn't even come out yet, but do you see these pairings as something that you're going to continue through the future of Hearthstone, or are you going to potentially mix up the tri-class factions in the future, or is this just a specific Gadgetzan expansion thing?
These pairings made a lot of sense for the mean streets of Gadgetzan. These are the factions that are trying to take over the streets. These are the ones that are fighting for dominance. And so for the mean streets of Gadgetzan, these factions made a lot of sense. If in the future we have expansions or adventures where different pairings make sense, that's definitely something we'll explore at that point.
Does your brain start to run away with, oh my goodness, what if there's,
Oh, there's so many cool things we can do.
Yeah. Okay, I was just curious. I'm going to throw back to Jocelyn about an expansion lineup.
Sure. I had a question basically about the theme around Gadgetzan that we kind of came to when you guys were doing all of your kind of teaser stuff with all the Gadgetzan, because we've already had Goblins versus Gnomes. So I was wondering if you could just speak to a little bit of your kind of design choices and if you had any difficulty making Gadgetzan feel different than Goblins versus Gnomes, since Gadgetzan is a goblin town in Warcraft.
So what we wanted to do here was first take a look at something that maybe WoW players or people who are familiar with Azeroth might know, this sleepy town of Daenerys. You guys talked last episode about the time you spent there, and I know that not everybody was a fan, but
I love it. I love Gadgetzan.
But you have spent time, so you're maybe familiar. And then, of course, the Cataclysm changed everything. It became a port town. And that's something we love with Hearthstone, is to explore our own twist. And we felt like that could give us the space to just see how might Gadgetzan change if we kind of really delved into that. So you saw with our teasers, greetings from Gadgetzan and all of the port town stuff that we were trying to push into. And really more than that is what would happen if all of the people across all of Azeroth then filtered in and joined the ranks there. And we were looking at, how can we change it? How can we make it Hearthstone? And we really liked this idea of cops and robbers. And what does that mean? And in fact, we liked it so much that we didn't want to just pick one version of cops and robbers. We wanted to see how many different ways we could go. And of course, 3 crime families rose to the top of our ideas and to the ranks in Gadgetzan. So it was really fun for us to kind of see what we could do there when we had those ideas kind of blossoming and the city growing that way.
That's fantastic. I've been running around the con floor finding every World of Warcraft dev I could be and just yelling at them that they need to update and make Gadgetzan the Hearthstone version, because it's fantastic. Back to tri-class cards, there's only so many we can play with on the floor with the demo. What we have played so far are fantastic, and I'm very excited about them getting to the game. But are there any coming, can you speak about any that are coming that don't play off of the Discover mechanic? Because so far the tri-class cards that we can play with are just Discover cards.
Well, actually, Kazakus is, I guess you could make an argument that you are looking at different spells in a Discover-like way, but he's not quite Discover. He has his own spell brewing fashion. There are 9 cards that are coming, and we can't tell you too much about the specifics there, but we've discussed that the leaders of the different groups here, so Aya Blackpaw as well as Don Honcho, are coming as well. So stay tuned as they reveal their plans in the next few weeks and you get to see. I think you'll be pretty excited about what we've got to offer.
Speaking of that, Discover seems to be the only mechanic from a previous expansion that has made a resurgence in a new expansion. Any other of I actually think Inspire is pretty cool. Are we going to see any of those come back?
Yeah, I personally like Inspire a lot. I think there's certainly space for it to come back in the future. One of the things we really like about Hearthstone is having new mechanics, and old mechanics go away for a little while and then they come back, and that's an exciting moment. Discover is one of the evergreen mechanics, one of the mechanics that we've kept coming back because it's really good for the game. It allows games to feel differently each time, but without being such wild swings. So it's controlled randomness in a way that feels very skill testing, and it's kind of like Christmas morning. You play a Discover card and you just get a new present. It's fun.
Obviously, I'm a huge lore nerd, so I wanted to go a little bit back into the lore around Gadgetzan. I know you mentioned in the Q&A that you guys are thinking of maybe potentially exploring a way to deliver Hearthstone lore outside of just Hearthstone. And so you mentioned short stories and comics, potentially. But right now, you seem to be putting a lot of work into the lore of Hearthstone. Do you feel that Hearthstone, the game itself, actually does a good job of getting your lore and your ideas and your stories across? Or are we maybe going to see you fall back a little bit more into the Warcraft universe like you did with Karazhan and kind of just keep it to a story and a lore that we already know? Because I love when you guys do stuff like this, and I want to see more of this, more League of Explorers, all that. But do you feel like it gives you enough of a way to tell the story within Hearthstone right now?
So we want to do a mix of those things. Karazhan's a great example. It's a place that's in the World of Warcraft that we took a totally different take on. So it's fun to explore that and then to see it represented again in World of Warcraft with some of the new Legion content. The Mean Streets of Gadgetzan is another example that's great. Here we have the new factions, the new crime bosses, all of this new content that we've gotten to explore. I don't know if you've read the newspapers that's been going around. I think it's amazing. There's all this really cool content on the web about Gadgetzan. Matt alluded to some of the other stuff that we might be considering that for the future for expanding on the story. So I think a mix of those things that are rooted in World of Warcraft, that tell stories that players from World of Warcraft really like, and also new Hearthstone content. Elise Starseeker, Reno Jackson, Aya Blackpaw, Don Honcho. These are all great characters that we're excited to explore.
And diving a little deeper into the art of it, I mean, I enjoyed the panel yesterday so much because you had a concept artist on stage, and he did such a good job. Was there any? We hear time and time again that you guys go and you talk to some of the World of Warcraft team. Was there more kind of cross work or cross play with them as well as you developed kind of the style of the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan?
Sure. For every expansion, we try to communicate with them. I mean, we're working on the same campus. We're friends with each other. You know, I meet these guys and we have lunch or we talk about things. We don't really consult on a very narrow, detailed level, like, oh, is it okay if we do this? Is it okay if we do that? There's none of that. We're both exploring the same world, and we're doing what's best for our games. But yeah, we talked to them a bunch about Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, something we're excited about. We talked to some of their story guys. What are cool ideas that you think would be great here? Patches the Pirate came out of that meeting. What if we had a pirate who was a beholder and had patches all over all of his eyes? How cool would that be? So yeah, there's a good back and forth there with the World of Warcraft team. It's fun seeing their concepts in our game and our concepts in theirs.
Did the swing jazz come from that meeting as well?
I am pretty sure that came from cinematics. They do their own thing, and they did a phenomenal job with this one. It's one of my favorites.
Is red mana a thing? Or were you guys just messing with us?
Well, we'll see. We've got some time in the next few weeks.
All right. I'm trying to get something out of these guys. Lindsay, come on.
Speaking of the next few weeks, I was wondering if you guys could speak a little bit to your expansion release schedule. So we were told about a year ago that we were going to do expansion, adventure, expansion in each kind of standard year. So now we've got the expansion coming out in December after BlizzCon, and I'm wondering if this is the schedule that we can kind of expect going forward, or if that was a result of kind of the late release of Old Gods and all the work that went into standard. Like, are we going to be able to see both expansions and the adventure played in BlizzCon next year?
So that's the plan right now, is this expansion release schedule that you just mentioned. Expansion, adventure, expansion. That's what we talked about. But Hearthstone's still a pretty young game. We're always experimenting with what's the best content cycle, what's the best thing for our players on the sort of newer level, on the competitive level, what's the best thing for the game. And I'm certain we haven't figured out, like, this is perfect, we will never change from here. That's not reasonable. So we're going to see how this goes. This will be the first time next year that we'll do expansion in a row. So we'll see how that goes and see how things feel as we move forward. And then if we want to change it, we'll do what's best for the game.
It does feel like you guys have been very good about that over at Team 5. Is that like you give us what your general plan is, but if you do feel that you need to deviate from that for the betterment of the game, you do. And I know we love it over here on the Angry Chicken.
Sure, yeah. Community feedback's really important to us. We read Reddit, we listen to podcasts, we watch Twitter. I mean, our forums, other community forums, all the places that people give us feedback. People walking up to us on the show floor at BlizzCon. So we listen to all of that and we take it in as we make decisions and figure out what to prioritize and even what expansions would be fun, what adventures people are excited about. We heard lots of people wanted to go to Karazhan, so that was an example. People really loved League of Explorers. They loved seeing this new intellectual property, these new ideas and characters that we designed, like for Mean Streets of Gadget Zan.
Oh, I know. I'm still waiting for my 80s skiing movie taking place in Ice Crown.
Ooh, that sounds pretty cool. I wonder if we could convince them to take us on a skiing trip as like market research.
I mean, Arthur's
that seems pretty cool.
Blonde bully douchebag, right?
Wow, there's a story here.
Yes. Oh, we're done. It's done. It's come out. It's one of those meetings. Yeah.
Arthas on ice.
Pretty good.
Wow, we've got a name and everything.
I mean, speaking of kind of breaking maybe a cycle that you have publicly announced, like when you land on something that's like you flesh out a world here it's so well realized. Was there a meeting where you guys went, can we make an adventure? Can we have an adventure with over 100 cards? Can we do that, guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. Doing a story around the Mean Streets of Gadget Zan is really exciting. I think that's why the community team put so much effort into these newspapers and into blowing out the world around these characters, because they're fun, they're exciting. You really just want to write about them. So my guess is this isn't the last that we'll ever see of these characters. That as we develop new Hearthstone characters, it'll be fun in the coming years to see where they go. Yeah, please.
I also just want to mention that I think that in this set in particular, what we've done with first the game board and then also just the flavor of the cards and the way that those look in their artwork and the way that they hit the board and the VO that they say, like without having an adventure to kind of tell that story, you can wonder, how can we get the point across? How do we kind of give the flavor? And I think we've nailed it. Like some of these cards with just the names of them make me laugh, and then they say their line of VO as they come out into play, and I'm like, wow, okay, well, I guess I know exactly what's going on because this is perfect, and I didn't need that adventure in this case to really understand what's going on.
No, I completely agree with you guys. One of the things I see in the greater Blizzard sphere, one of the biggest compliments about Overwatch we always hear is that, wow, what a great world that we barely get to see any of in the actual game. But that's why they do such a good job fleshing out those characters that you care about them, even though there's no campaign mode, there's no story in the game itself. And I don't think Hearthstone gets a big enough credit for that, because you guys do that as well, and with this especially. And we've only seen a handful of cards. You guys have absolutely killed it.
Thank you.
Now back to the lead up to this announcement with your newspapers, with the little art, with your Facebook Messenger. Can we expect to see more of that for future expansions / adventures?
I mean, I think that we're going to be looking to see how people like it. Sounds like it's going pretty awesome. I've loved it. Seeing the Murlocs walking around BlizzCon here and handing out newspapers, it was a personal highlight for entertainment value for me. So, I mean, we're excited about it this time around. We think that it gives a lot of credence and flavor to the Mean Streets of Gadget Zan. So we'll see what we do, but I'm glad you guys are liking it.
I just want to talk about design a little bit. How limiting does it feel when you are trying to make these characters come to life that everything has to work on mobile as well? Is that one of the biggest challenges, to make these tiny little characters feel large? Because I did notice on the stage, the concept designer, the concept artist was talking about this guy, he's a sneaky fellow, he likes to do that. And I'm like, oh, he's just a card. But, no, he is more than that. How hard is it to make that kind of come to life, especially when you have to make it work on a phone?
Yeah, I mean, having the smaller resolution is definitely a thing that we're always looking at. In fact, we have all of our engineers and all of our artists have the ability to kind of have a mode that when we're developing, we can see, oh, this is what it looks like on a phone or whatever. And that's very important to us because obviously we have a lot of people who are playing that way. We also get to lean into things that aren't necessarily limited, like the VO I was mentioning. That plays the same, right, on any device, and that helps us get that flavor across. But I feel like we've gotten great mix of all of the elements of a card that you kind of still recognize it on mobile. It still feels like, I mean, you can see the art, maybe it's smaller, but you can see everything that you need to see to know what's going on. So I commend all of the people on the team that look at that. And, you know, it's a no easy task to do it. Yeah.
Was there anything, while we're talking with you, Rachelle, was there anything else besides tri-class cards that was a relatively large challenge to make function in the game?
Red mana?
Things you're allowed to talk about?
I mean, we have 132 cards in this set, and expansions always have more cards than an adventure. So that alone is a sheer wall of stuff that needs to be built. Our gameplay team especially has a huge challenge when they're trying to make sure that each one of those cards feel amazing. I mean, if you look at Kazakis as an example, when you're playing him, he's one card, but he produces a potion that can be more than 100 different things. And each one of those elements of his potion has different art on it. Like, so it's a huge task to do that, and it affects everybody on the team for certain. As an engineer, it definitely was like a huge thing for me and the rest of the engineers on the team to be able to tackle that. And each card is slightly different, but sometimes it sounds like, oh, it's just another set. It's the same thing they've done. And it proves to be a new challenge every time.
I was wondering if you guys could basically speak to Priest a little bit, because that is one of the big things in the community. And I know we saw some what looked like very powerful Priest cards that were released probably first just to pacify the community a little bit. So I was just wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about the design space of Priest and kind of where you feel that class needs to go, because a lot of the comments have been that, you know, Paladin heals better and Rogues steal better. So, you know, where does Priest kind of fall? And so just give us some idea of where you see Priest going and, just your ideas around the Priest design space.
Sure. So priests have a couple of design spaces that we're exploring right now. And again, I'm not going to say this is the final version, we will never change. But for right now, in the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, we're sort of exploring 3 different priest archetypes. One of them's the dragon priest that we've seen in the past. Blackrock Mountain introduced some great dragon priest cards. Grand Tournament did as well. And so now we've got some more. Draconid Operative is an excellent dragon priest card. Dragon Fire Potion is powerful in a variety of priest decks, but also in Dragon Priest in particular. So that's one of the directions that we're pushing. Some priest players want a more sort of traditional, tricky control style for priest. So we have Potion of Madness and Pint-Sized Potion. Potion of Madness steals a smaller creature for a turn. And so you can use that. Maybe you take a Loot Hoarder and you get its Death Rattle, and you feel very clever because you're doing something awesome. Pint-Sized Potion combos with that. It says your opponent's minions have -3 attack this turn. It's great with Shadow Word Horror, great with Pint-Sized Potion. There's a lot of cool combos that you can do with that. So that's a different direction we want to go with Priest, is these weird, tricky combo playstyle. And the third one is this Reno Jackson Priest idea. You see it on Kazakis. Reno Jackson's already a thing. There have been some people in the past that have played Reno Priest decks, and it feels pretty different than the other two. There's a lot of variance. You're doing sort of a different strategy, and so we want to play that up a little bit, the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan as well. So we're introducing a card to work with that.
So about the kind of tricky archetype that you're talking about seems very spell-based. And right now, at least, the meta in Hearthstone is very minion-based and very tempo-based. So do you feel that with the release of Gadgetzan, it's going to change the meta enough so that a tricky combo spell deck will be a little bit more viable than it currently is?
So some combo spell decks right now are pretty viable. There's Tempo Mage decks that run a ton of spells. They used to play Yogg-Saron, but now some number fewer of them do. They play Flamewaker, they play Mana Worm. That deck's pretty powerful. We're seeing a bunch of it at the World Championship as well. The Druid decks that make either the Token deck or the Malygos Druid deck are both very spell-based as well. So we've got some spell decks right now, and the Priest deck might be in that same vein. But one of the things that's really important to us is that the Hearthstone metagame ebbs and flows. Sometimes AoE removal is really good. Sometimes AoE removal is less good. Right now, we're at sort of a low point for AoE, especially in Priest. We're adding Dragonfire Potion, so now Priest AoE is much better. Pint-Sized Potion makes Shadow Word Horror a lot better. There's another good AoE. So as those things change, the whole rest of the metagame needs to evolve around that, because decks that are vulnerable to AoE become worse, and so on. And there's lots of aspects of Hearthstone and of the game mechanics portion that can ebb and flow like that. And so that's one of the things we try to do to keep Hearthstone fresh.
Well, Peter and Rachelle, thank you so much for your time. Clearly, we're excited about the main streets of Gadget Zan. So, everyone, stay patient till December.
Thank you so much.
It was great talking to you guys.